Hello, this is Katie, and I am meeting with Michael. And Michael is a good friend of mine, and he has a lot of experiences that he's going to share with us. So, Michael, I'm just going to let you take it from here and just let us know everything you want us to know.
Okay. First of all, I realized over time these experiences that it's more than just one thing. This whole thing about Bigfoot, I never really believed in Bigfoot. Um, Moved out here in 2000 and started working right away in town, and was working for a lady once and putting a fence up, and it was back behind Story, back in Story, Indiana. And was familiar with Browning Mountain, so that's one of the things I want to explain is some of these encounters I think are more than just Bigfoot, and that's kind of what I want to kind of touch on. There's the different energies that are going on.
Can I ask you a quick question? When you heard of Bigfoot growing up, what did you think of it? Did you think it was just a myth?
I figured if enough people seen and believed in it, that there must be some truth to it. Just
Okay.
like there's, all these other folklores that seems to have a thread of truth in it. So
So you were open to the
yeah,
opportunity.
but I've just never experienced it.
Okay.
So anyway, the this Browning Mountain, there was I knew of Browning Mountain, Browning Mountain as far as knowing that it had a history, a folklore of something called the Watcher up there, and there was also something I knew of about the headstones, the stones that were erected out there. Nobody knew who built them and how they got out there, and I visited maybe once. So I had no knowledge that I was right next to it. So I'm working on this alpaca farm and putting up this fence, and I thought there was somebody, some of the kids that had gone to school that day. I thought maybe they hadn't gone to school because I could hear them laughing. I heard kids laughing, and so they were in the woods, and I thought that was kind of freaky. Why are the kids? Are they peeking on me, or are they spying on me? So I went out to the woods to see what was out there, and I found a graveyard. So I came back. I asked the owner of what's going on with that property up there, and she said, "Oh, that's Browning Mountain." And something was calling my name quite a few times, and I thought maybe it was the kids.
They were actually calling Michael.
Yeah, there was quite a few. Yeah, about 3 times they had called my name. And so I worked with some elders at the time and some medicine people, and they said, Michael, that there's maybe like a vision quest you can do, or a thing called to ask for understanding. So I'd gone up there for planning on going for 2 days, and just sitting up on the spot up there and just doing going through the protocol and to see what would happen.
Did you ever at one time think maybe it's Bigfoot? Or did you think it was more spiritual?
I wasn't even thinking about Bigfoot.
Okay.
I wasn't even entering my mind.
Okay.
And so when I got up there, to make a long story short, and I really don't want to go through the whole story because it's really long. Something was up there. I've been deer hunting most of my life, so I know when a deer comes through the woods. Most of the time, you don't hear them at all, and I know what a two-legged sounds like, and I can hear the weight of whatever it was walking around in circles at night. And so I started to talk to it.
Now, were you in a tent?
No, I was sitting on a rock.
You were out in the open,
Yeah.
in the middle of the woods by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
You're
this
very
thing-
brave. Okay.
This thing started walking around me, and I can hear it. I can hear it. I can hear its feet, and it was big. And how I can tell it was so big is because you can hear the weight of the feet crunching on the ground. And so I started talking to it, figuring it was some kind of spirit. It wouldn't show itself, but it was testing me to see if I was going to leave. And it knocked this big tree down right in front of me. I mean, a big tree. If it hit me, it would have killed me.
Now, was this in the middle of the night?
Yeah, so I couldn't have got up and left anyway, because there was a couple of things going on. One was, I was so disoriented when I was there, and I didn't realize why until afterwards, because the stone I was on was limestone, and it just seemed to suck me dry, like my energy was just sucked dry, and I realized later sitting on limestone is really not good for your energy.
Okay. Is it okay if I ask you questions?
Yeah.
As they come to me?
Yeah.
Did you hear anything other than the footprints? Did you hear any breathing or growling or
No,
anything?
I didn't hear anything like that.
Okay.
Um,
Did you smell anything?
no.
Okay.
This is why I'm sharing. Those are good questions,
Okay.
and I'm gonna get to this something.
Okay. Okay.
So that experience was pretty much over, and I had a dream that night, and this being came to me. It never revealed to me what it looked like, but it said, "I am older than the hills, and I am here to keep the door. I am the doorkeeper." How did he say that? I'm here. Something about the door. I'm here to protect the door, or keep the door. Something about he's a keeper of the door, some kind of door,
Okay.
and he's there for a reason. This thing, this watcher.
But it was definitely male.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it never showed me what it looked like.
Okay.
And so I started doing research on it, and I found a book, and it was called Ellettsville, a town that almost was, or Elkinsville, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Elkinsville, the town that almost was, and it was about when they flooded Monroe, and they talked to this folklore about the Watcher. Did not, to me, sound like a Bigfoot, and I couldn't. It sounded something dimensional, interdimensional,
Okay.
and so I couldn't.
Can
quite
you
put
tell
my-
me how they described it? In the book?
Some people said it would be like a shadow coming up and down the hill, or it would chase people down, or it would be like a dark figure, like just something dark, had no no figure to it.
Okay.
Nobody had ever described it, making it sound like a Bigfoot.
Okay.
So,
Did it ever hurt anyone?
no.
Okay.
But there's also orbs that have been spotted up there, big orbs.
Okay.
And so, there's another part to that story, but that has nothing to do with what I want to get to.
Okay.
So that was over, and over time, I'm very involved in Native American things and ceremonies, and we were doing a vision quest, and I started doing vision quest not far from the plateau that we were on. It was the next ridge over from Browning Mountain,
Okay.
and this was in Hoosier National Forest. There's a part where Hoosier National Forest is where there's part of the lake where it separates like civilian to hardcore, the national park where nobody goes into.
Okay.
And so we were on the civilian side, and we had done vision quest there. So our first encounters with that was I was putting some people up, and some of the encounters were there's quite a few actually. One person described somebody walking around them in circles, trying to figuring out why they were there. And another person that was close to the water said somebody was doing the same thing, circling them, trying to pretty much figure out why they were there, and threw a big boulder in the water,
Okay.
which caught his attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I assured them it wasn't me, and so they spent a night out there, and one of the guys that was watching a fire, I was in the tent, something was circling my tent, and it was big. And that was pretty much it. Now,
Did you feel fear?
no. The only things I worried about were cats, were big cats.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's what I constantly was looking for. I was worried about a cougar,
Okay.
because they've been spotted out there.
Mhm.
And they will, they could attack you, just a wild animal could attack you.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, they're pretty, they keep away from people, but you just don't know.
Yeah.
So that was my main concern. I'm not really still thinking about a Bigfoot, but
Now, if you could estimate the weight, could you give me an estimate?
over 200 pounds easy. When this
Easy,
thing
okay.
walked, you heard it. You just heard it sink and crunch, and you can tell this thing weighed a lot.
Okay.
That's what caught my attention.
Okay.
And so, and I know as a hunter what would make a sound like that. Only a huge, heavy person could make a sound like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that encounter came and went. We went out again. This time, we decided to go to the, during that moment, when we had those individuals out, I had gone, during the night, like 12 at night, I had gone to the other side of the lake in a canoe to sing some native songs to kind of put them in that, just put that feel out there, put that energy out there. And as I had done that and canoeing to the other side of the ridge, I saw this light on top of this hill that I was heading towards. And at first I thought, oh great, there's campers out here and this guy's coming down the hill with a lantern. Then I realized that's not a lantern. It was one of the biggest orbs I have ever seen.
What color?
Of white, and it looked like
White.
a milky white, maybe with a tint of blue to it, and it moved fast down this hill,
And how big would you estimate
the
it?
size of a basketball.
Okay.
It was huge. Never seen. Yes, I have seen them that big, but not. So anyway, it came right to the canoe, and it was wondering, and it knew. I had a feeling it knew my intention, so I had to fulfill and continue what I was there to do, which was to sing in front of this orb. It sat there.
It was your
And
audience.
Yeah, it was kind of unnerving, but at the same time, it actually started feeling very comforting because it was responding like, if it didn't like it, it would have shooed me off. But it was like, no, go ahead. And it was pretty cool. And then it just went out. Just went out.
It just dissipated.
Yeah. Like halfway through the song, it just went out. And I kept singing the song. So that caught my attention. Never heard any sounds. Never heard any grunts. Never heard any knocks. Nothing like that. Just those particular things.
In your opinion, what do you think that orb was?
Well, I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
Because I know from working with medicine and medicine men and shamans and working on that level that usually an energy like that that's manifesting in our space, it should still be going.
Yep.
Is usually something from another dimension
Okay.
that's manifesting in our space. An energy that's there, but it's dimensional.
It made itself physical.
It made itself presence known.
Okay. Okay.
If it could, so I'll get to some of those other what you just said. So
Okay.
that incident was over. I think it was the next year.
Is this still okay? So that was in 2000.
No, that was
Like after-
maybe 2006,
Okay. Okay.
2005. So prior to this, every spring I would go out to this location. Now I'm prepping the other side because I've been going to the other side where the water is and this hill, this ridge, and finding this location that I just can feel it in my gut. Something is going on here. That spirit was really heavy there. There was something very special about this place. And so I started leaving offerings, and I was still thinking of a big cat. And so I would leave pieces of meat on a stick from the deer hunts that I had, and I would put a little ring of tobacco around it, letting them know this was an offering. And then I would drum with my drum and sing some songs. Well, after about maybe 4 years of this every year, I think they got to know that it was me. And a couple of times they had left things behind. And so I had, the last time I had found, I would leave these designs for them, and I feel like they liked that. Like, there was this bird that had been somehow died or something, and it was just pretty much feathers, but the feathers were just beautiful. I forget what kind of bird it was. But I created this design around the offering, and somehow I got the feeling, and then I called him in and told him it was me, and left. And I just got the feeling like they appreciated something like that. I don't know, it's just really weird. So anyway, so here we go, and now we actually got quite a few people this time. 3 people up on Vision Quest on this ridge, on the other side. On the civilian side, we had a camp with some of the ladies and a big drum, big ceremonial drum. This is probably the first time anybody's done a ceremony, a sacred fire, or called in anything sacred in a native tongue in probably 200 years, maybe longer. We didn't really know what to expect, but when we did this, and there were fishermen on the lake, and this is at night, I couldn't believe what I saw. When they started singing that drum, it's a 4-foot drum in diameter, and when you hit that thing, it just permeated the entire valley. It just echoed, and everybody was getting goosebumps, and this is exactly what we saw.
Okay.
It looked like little tiny lights at the very top of the tree line where we were going to be. Almost through the coast of where we were drumming, the entire tree line lit up with multicolored lights twinkling while we were doing this, and then they started leaving the top of the trees and they were coming to the ground. I have no clue what that was. But in my mind, in my whatever, I kept thinking fairies.
Yeah, I was going
like
to say
some kind
maybe
of
fairies.
fairy realm. That's I know it sounds crazy, but that's what comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the orbs came out, and there was quite a few of them, different size orbs, and they were responding to the music, to the sound, or to these sacred songs. They're actually sacred songs, Lakota songs. So anyway, that now we got these people up there, and we're doing an actual vision quest. And this fire that we start, we actually put a sweat lodge up there. It was a big endeavor. I don't think I'll ever want to do this again. It was grueling. This ridge that we climbed goes almost 45 angles straight up, and it comes to a plateau, and then 45 up again, and then the second plateau. The first plateau is where we set the fire in a sweat lodge. The second plateau is where the people were doing their vision quest. Within a shouting reach, we can hear them, but we can't see them. Mm-hmm. The fire was meant to go for 4 days, or the whole 3 days, at least the duration of when we were up there. So this guy that was with us was all into Bigfoot, and he's saying, I bet there's Bigfoots out here, and we're all kind of joking. And so that night, when we had hit the drum, we were getting ready to go to sleep. Sure enough, this guy starts messing around, and he's trying to, oh wait a minute, that's not the order it happened in. Oh yes it is. Okay, so he was goofing around, he finds this big stick, and it was getting late at night, and he says, hey, let's call in some Bigfoots. And so he's trying to smack this tree with the stick, and every time he does it, the stick breaks, and I'm laughing because it's taken him 5 tries to find a stick that's worthy of making a noise. Mm-hmm. And he finally gets
Amateur.
it. Yeah, it was hilarious. And if there was a Bigfoot out there, I'm sure he was probably giggling. Mm-hmm. And so finally he hits it and does a couple of knocks, and there's no response. There's nothing. And I'm just kind of joking. So the next morning, the next day, is when it got crazy. They said something was up here, Mike. Whatever it was that was watching us was all around us. There was a woman and 2 men, and then I got scared because I kept thinking a cat was circling them. Mm-hmm. So me and my son walked around in the afternoon, and we decided we're going to take a long walk, cover every trail, look for every waterway, and look for cougar tracks. No tracks. But what we did see, I could not explain.
Okay.
On the other side of that ridge where these people were at, one side is the water, the other side goes straight down into a valley. And the valley is beautiful, except for this one tree that sits in the middle of the valley, a big maple tree. And if I take you out there, everything that I say is still going to be there. Okay. And I'll show it to you. Okay. This tree, and this was in the middle afternoon. This is one of the reasons why we went out there, because we heard this, and we heard it snap. Mm-hmm. And there was no wind. There was no reason for that tree to break unless it was falling, but you can tell it wasn't a tree that was falling. It was a tree that was being manipulated, twisted, and bent. You can hear it. And it was, you felt it. And so that's when we decided to go out and look for these tracks. Well, we find the tree, and the tree had been twisted and bent, the one that was in this little field area, like out in the middle in the open, like, look at this tree. They obviously picked the one that was going to be obvious, and it was at 12 feet in the air. It had been twisted and bent over in the direction of where we were. And right away, I got the impression, this is your side, this is our side. Mm-hmm. Okay. Something did this. Okay. Then I started thinking, maybe there is a Bigfoot out here.
So you said 12 feet up.
Yes.
Is where it was twisted and bent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe even higher than that, maybe 15 feet. Whatever it was, I'd have to get a ladder to go up there. So now I'm thinking Bigfoot. Okay, here's the part where I don't like to talk about, but it's important.
Okay.
Okay, as a medicine person, I work with spirits. Some of the spirit helpers work with me. I know them by name. And they have a way of letting me know who they are when they show up.
Okay.
One has a red orb, and he has a particular name. And he's, I'm not going to go into the detail, but it's a helper. It's a good helper. They're good. They're not, negative. They're good things. So the camp that's on the other side are familiar with these helpers because they work with them as well. And in the middle of the night, before we take these people down, we usually have to take them back in the sweat lodge when the ceremony's over. We were planning on waking up in the morning and taking these people down. In the middle of the night, I was wakened by something knocking on the tree. We have a two-way radio to reach the other side to make sure that they wake up when we're ready. Two-way radios aren't working. Something's knocking on a tree, and it's waking us up. And I get this impression it's warning us. You guys need to go now. Something is going to happen. And then I knew there was a storm coming, but I had no idea how bad it was. The other side of the camp was not receiving my CB stuff on the whatever the radio, but the helper showed up and told them, "Wake up! You got to go. It's going to get bad." And so whatever this, oh God, I forgot to tell you the biggest part of this thing. After the afternoon, after we had saw the tree, we had gone back to the other side, and during the afternoon, we were going to exchange people by the fire. So me and my son started walking up to the first plateau where the fire was. By time we were walking up to that first plateau, the other guy that was watching the fire's coming down. So the fire is not attended for at least a minute or so before we get up there. And this is exactly what I saw. I'll try not to embellish in any way, but enough to explain what it is I saw. Because I've never encountered anything like this. And everything that I do, working with spirits and medicine people, I have never seen anything like this. As we were walking up to that plateau and we saw the fire, we saw something standing in front of the fire. But it was invisible.
Okay.
The only reason we saw it in front of the fire, because it was standing in front of the fire. And it reminded me of that movie Predator.
Yes.
With Schwarzenegger, with that thing. That's exactly what it looked like.
Like it had a cloak. Like it cloaked itself.
Yes. And then when we went up to the plateau and it heard us, my son right away grabbed my arm and he said, "Dad." And I said, "Shh, give me a cigarette." Because I was going to offer him something, like a tobacco offering. And when it saw us, it turned with one leg, and when it turned with one leg and faced us, because its back was to us, and when it turned, it faced us, only half of it now was in the fire, in front of the fire, and the other half was away from the fire, so you couldn't see the other half at all. I mean at all. As if though it was just, all you could see was one half of this bipedal thing standing there in front of the fire.
Like half?
Yes, because...
Or half?
No, half like a...
up and down half?
The up and down half,
Okay.
because it was standing away from the fire.
Okay.
And the fire is the only thing that revealed its presence.
Gotcha.
And so, it was big. And it was hard to tell how big it was, but it was bigger than an average man.
If you could guess.
I'd say maybe 8-10 feet tall.
Okay.
Again, not thinking Sasquatch, because to me, this just doesn't remind me of a Sasquatch. So, I know it's staring at us, and I grabbed the cigarette, and I said, grandfather of the woods, there's friends of mine that are up there asking for an understanding to get more connected to this earth and to this place. Go share something with them. Help them. give them something to help them understand, you know. And and he did. He turned around and he started walking up the hill. Here's the cool part, and this is so revealing. When it took a step, you can see the step of the leaves going down, but not the weight. This is really hard to explain. And as it lifted its foot, a little piece of a leaf would spin like in a spiral up, as if though it was being pulled up by the energy of its footprint as it left. And as it took each step, it would do that. Each leaf would get pulled up, each leaf, and you can see it, but it wasn't weight, it was an energy. And whatever it was dimensional. It got far enough to the tree where it went behind the tree and was peeking behind the tree. And then I said a few more words, like, thank you, grandfathers, you know, thank you for hearing and listening to us. We're here, you know, with respect. And I just felt like it nodded, and it turned around, and we saw it walk up the hill. You know, you can see it in the ground walking up the hill.
That explains so much why we usually don't see footprints.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm gonna go. We finally back to at night in the middle of 4 in the morning, and we're being told you better go. And whatever it was I feel had enough respect to say, you know, you guys need to go. And it was doing it in a good way. And we did. And sure enough, as soon as we got in our vehicles, it was practically like a tornado. It was bad. We wouldn't have wanted to been out there. So those encounters made me really think, you know, okay, this Bigfoot thing. Well, now something happened here in my backyard, and I live another plateau away from these other 2 plateaus. And I did the Vision Quest. We do ceremonies here, and I was going to do a Vision Quest here on my property to initiate Vision Quest for other people. Again, still thinking and worried about big cats. And I want to go into detail because there's a lot more. There's this like tip of the iceberg what I'm sharing with you guys, just the tip, because I can go into detail of just this property and why I'm here.
Okay.
And it has everything to do with an energy cord and the veil being thin here, and it has something to do with what we've experienced here is a lot of anomalies and phenomena that happens here. And I think it has everything to do with ley lines and energy cords. Mm-hmm. There's water up here. There's a well up here. It's the second highest plateau in the county. Mm-hmm. And we've had encounters with, how could you, like people. We've actually seen other people and heard people up here. There's been histories. I've asked the locals around here if, you know, anything about Bigfoots, and they said no, but we wouldn't let the kids play down in the valleys. And I said, why? He goes, because we would hear children down there playing, and it would freak us out because we all knew our kids were up here. How could there be kids down there laughing and playing? And so I thought that was really odd, because sometimes I hear Bigfoots, the little ones make sound like little kids laughing and whatever. And so I can go into more detail about that, but there's so much to say. I'm just going to kind of go over the surface of this thing.
Okay, well, before we move on to this location, could you estimate how wide, because you told me about how tall, can you estimate how wide this thing was?
It wasn't.
When it was facing.
It wasn't wide.
No, it was. It
was actually thin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thinner than I would have expected.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Okay.
It wasn't like huge, broad, like you would think, you know, like some of the Bigfoots are. And this is what, you know, and this is all coming to a picture I'm going to reveal at the end.
One more question. A lot of people describe their movement as fluid. Like, there are people that have seen them that looks like it's almost like they're gliding. Yeah. Did you see that? Or did you see?
No, I never saw anything physically like a physical being, something like a Bigfoot. I never actually seen that. Okay. What I saw was just what was happening to the ground.
Okay.
There was nothing. It was invisible. Those things that I saw.
As it was walking away, you saw
can see the footprints. That's what you were focusing on. The footprints walking in the ground, which was crazy. We were.
What about branches? Was it?
There was no branches there.
Okay, it was clear.
Yeah, it was clear leaves area. He was walking up the hill.
And did it take the cigarette?
No. Oh
Okay,
no.
okay.
Thank God. It,
Right.
it just turned around and walked up the hill.
Okay.
But I was offering it to it. That's another good question. Yeah.
Okay.
Where was I? So okay, we went through all that. Oh, back to my place.
Okay.
Now, since we've been doing ceremonies here, since I've lived here, we've had encounters here, and some were so ridiculous that I feel really stupid even talking about it. We had some incidents when we first moved in here. Was the winter time, and something was, you can hear the screams out there, and then something was making knocks, letting us know that it was there. And I think a few times they threw some rocks on the roof, but that was just a few times.
Can I tell you, when I was coming in the drive, I could have swore a little pebble hit the top of my hood. Because it's raining, and you can tell the difference between rain.
Yeah, hard
It
telling.
sounded like a little
They
rock.
don't even know you're coming. I don't know. It's pretty funny.
Okay.
So, where was I?
So you mentioned the silly things that was going on that you were experiencing.
Yeah, this is the very beginning. Stuff like that. My son spent the night here. We all heard it, and over time, you can hear during the seasons when they come through, because you can hear them screaming.
Do they scream with the coyotes, or
no? They set the coyotes off.
They do. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I've heard that once
Yeah,
before.
and there was one time, oh my God, it was so sad. Something was hurt. It was moaning and groaning and would not stop. I wanted so bad to go out there, but it was so I've never heard anything like this. But whatever it was, it sounded like it hurt itself, and it screamed for a really long time. Stopped, and the dogs went nuts. You could hear the dogs on the other side of the lake. They were going off on this thing. I'm just giving you a bunch of little things that have happened.
Oh yeah, please give me as much as you can. Don't worry about
before I got
time.
chickens out here, I was planning on getting chickens. I came home from work and the windows were all open. It was a hot summer's day, and I laid on a couch, started falling asleep, and I was awoken by some weird noise in the woods that I couldn't identify. I can identify just about anything out there. I had no clue what this noise was.
Can you describe it?
I thought it was some kind of crazy bird that maybe wasn't a bird, because it did things that it made it sound like it was trying to act like a bird. It was like a gutturally person trying to make us bird sounds.
Okay.
That's what it reminded me of.
I've heard that so many times, where Bigfoot tries to mimic other animals, and you can just tell it's not that animal.
That's exactly what I was hearing, and I was trying to fall asleep because I was exhausted, but I'm like, whatever this is, I'm going to get a video camera, I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to see what the hell this is, and I'm going to get it on film, because I've caught some really cool things on film before, and that's just one of the things I was hoping to do. So I go down there with my video camera, sure enough, I get to the wood line, and it stops. I mean, it stops. It must have knew or heard me coming. And then, I know this sounds stupid, I feel so stupid, but all of a sudden I started hearing a chicken clucking. And I'm like, it's just a damn chicken. What the hell's a chicken doing down there? And it's clucking exactly like a chicken. So I started walking away thinking, oh, it's just a chicken. And then something took off and crashed through them woods. It sounded like a damn buffalo running through them woods. And I'm like, oh my God, it tricked me. Whatever was right there, as soon as I turned my back, it took off running. It was not a chicken. Why would I even think that it's a chicken? It couldn't have been a chicken. There's no chickens down there in the gully. So it acted like a chicken.
Is that when you had chickens here?
No,
it was before you got your chickens.
Yeah, which is really hilarious. Then I started getting chickens, and all my chickens, by the way, disappeared. I think they came and took all my chickens. So anyway,
so they were mimicking something small, so you would just ignore it and walk away.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, he's probably telling me, "Hey, why don't you go get some chickens?"
Right.
So okay, I'm gonna jump around. Now here's this one. It starts. All this is leading up to something.
Okay. Let me do a timeout here.
Yeah.
Because I need to text my honey and let him know that I'm here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me pause this here.